Welcome to Hospitality Talks. In today's complex landscape of hospitality industry, financial pressures, workforce challenges, evolving traveler expectations, and regulatory risks all need to be managed simultaneously. The hotels and brands that thrive in this environment will be those that can adapt proactively, investing in their employees, staying alert to operational challenges, and prioritizing both the safety and experience of their guests. Hospitality business has always been about creating memorable moments for guests, but delivering those moments in the future will continue to require mastery of all complexities playing out behind the scenes. I'm Abid Bas, and I'm here with my co-host, Sam-Erik. Sam.
Hi, this is Sam-Erik, and very glad to have this episode with very distinguished guests. And we're looking forward to give her some interesting questions that will also help you to educate your partners in the field.
So, Sam, as you know, today we have Laura Lee Blake joining us, who serves as the president and CEO of Asian American Hotel Owner Association, which is the world's largest owners association. It has about 20,000 members who own 60% of the hotels in US. A highly accomplished attorney with over 25 years of experience, Laura brings decades of experience in law, government, business, and academia to AHOA. Today, in addition to fair franchising, Laura also prioritizes legislative advocacy strategies and alliance with supporters of the travel industry. I think it'll be a fabulous conversation because of the membership Laura represents.
Absolutely. And I'm also interested to find out if she has a moment with the decision makers, but it's the one thing that really want her members to understand and the legislators to understand, but also because the industry is very complex. What are the priorities? I mean, the members have their pain points. How is it going to support the needs of the members, considering 60% are in US?
Amazing. So let's bring Laura in. Welcome to Hospitality Talks, Laura. Thank you for taking the time to join this conversation. We look forward to hearing all about AHOA members and what AHOA is doing working with the elected officials in making hotel industry a better industry. Sam.
Well, I think it's very exciting to have an opportunity to meet you here online for the first time, but I'm excited to learn about your activities and actually how you talk to the policymakers and how you work and to help the membership to get through what the concerns are.
Yes, thank you. Well, it is my great honor to join today and to share a little bit more about AHOA, which stands for the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. We have nearly 20,000 members, and they are based here in the U.S., all 20,000, but they own more than 60% of all hotels in the U.S. And most people have not even heard of AHOA, but the Asian stands for the Indian hotel owners. The vast majority of them, their last name is Patel. And so I'm sure a lot of your viewers, your listeners know hotel owners with the last name Patel. And I would encourage them to ask if they are members of AHOA. But I'll share too that AHOA members do not just participate in the hotel industry, they actually power it. And it's such a tribute to the American dream, achieving the American dream, coming over from India, many of them approximately 35 to 40 years ago, buying up their first hotels and then really taking over the industry with owning now more than 60%. One final comment on that is many of them also now have started to reinvest in their businesses, even in hotels in India, as it's continuing to build out its infrastructure.
Fantastic. Well, Laura, you certainly represent a massive group of people in 60% of the hotels in the US, which continues to be the largest market. So let's dive right in. Since AHOA's main focus remains on advocacy, tell us a bit about what you're working on with elected officials in making business slightly easier. God only knows it's a very tough business.
Yes. Well, and thank you for that question. That is one of our key focuses of AHOA, advocacy. We do it at the federal, the state, as well as at the local levels. At the federal level, one of our key components is increasing access to capital. And we are largely responsible for having a bill introduced in Washington, D.C., which is a bit a point of pride for me. After nearly 35 years, AHOA is responsible for introducing legislation, but it would be to increase SBA 7A and 504 loans from $5 million to $10 million. Now, this was last set back in 2010, 16 years ago, where the $5 million cap was set. And so it is high time. You see it, across all of the industries, of course, even in our personal lives, how much expenses have increased. So this is not just about making access to capital. It's really to ensure that traveling guests have excellent experiences staying at these hotels because they have the capital necessary to power them, to fund them.
Amazing. How has that progressed? The 16 years is a long time, and with inflation and economic ups and downs, it's about time that maximum gets adjusted. Are you seeing some traction on the floor?
We absolutely are. Right now, it's been introduced both in the Senate and in the House. On the Senate side, it's called the Lions Act, which stands for Loans in Our Neighborhood. And we have bipartisan support there, which nowadays in DC, it's not easy to get bipartisan support. On the House side, we have more than 20 co-sponsors. In the industry, we also have formed a coalition, and we have all of the major hotel brands signing on to it, as well as other associations and industry leaders. And of course, 100% of the owners are in favor of it. So now our President Trump, in many ways opened up the door by allowing this for the manufacturing industry. And we are hoping that since he is also a hotelier, he'll see the benefit to opening this up for the hotel industry and really all small business owners.
Fantastic. Laura, your members run a whole gamut from a small single unit roadside place to large companies that might own a portfolio of hotels. And the needs of each of your members, I'm sure there might be a consistent thread, but the needs might be different. Tell us how you are able to manage that. I'm sure that internally there might be a bit of a healthy tension as to what stays on your radar first and foremost.
Yes. So, well, I will share with you that our key focus right now is really profitability. You have probably read in the news, it's reported that expenses are up 7 to 10%, while revenues for many hotel owners are either flat or even dipping. And so profitability is a key focus to sustain the industry. And we are doing that through a number of different ways. It's everything from education to having personal one-on-one meetings with the executives of the brands to identify ways that they can support some of these profitability initiatives. So that is a key word. We just finished our annual AHOACon, we call it, in Philadelphia just this past month. And we had thousands of hotel owners attend. But again, this was one of our key focuses was the profitability and what does that look like for the industry.
When you're advocating for such a diverse group like owners, brands, operators, how do you balance those competing interests in real life?
And that is a constant challenge. So you are, directly on point because Oftentimes, of course, the brands are looking at growth, right? They want to continue to increase the number of hotels, increase the rooms, increase even the brand names. Meanwhile, the owners, like we just talked about, because of profitability, they have to be conservative. They have to watch what's going on. So now we're looking at, in the next 5 years, the industry will have to change. It cannot stay the same because if the owners are not profitable, if their margins are not there, there is not going to be the growth. So you can see right there the tension as we address these issues. But that is AHOA's role. That is where we step up as the voice of the owners to talk to these brands, to bring these real concerns to them. This is not just a talking point. Right now, it's an economic reality. So we welcome that challenge as we, meet with everyone, listen to what their challenges are and bring that forward so that we can collaborate to find the solutions.
Laura, the topic of Airbnb types of operation commingled in hotels and hotels being gauged under different sets of rules than Airbnb accommodations might be. And I know you have led that charge in trying to level the playing field. Could you please share with us how that's going?
Yes. So Airbnb, it's one of these situations that for our owners, of course, if a family wants to offer or feature their home on Airbnb, for additional income, we of course welcome that. We support that. That is a lovely entrepreneurial idea. But what we've also seen in the industry is that large companies are often coming into communities, buying up the affordable housing and turning them into Airbnb properties. And what the challenge is that Airbnb is now a direct competitor of hotels, where hotels are heavily regulated, but Airbnb is not. And so it's an unlevel playing field. Hotels, they have to pay additional taxes. They have strong safety regulations, even things like there cannot be cameras in the rooms, right? Airbnb and the short-term rentals are not facing those same regulations, those same restrictions. And so our goal is to explain this to elected officials, encourage them to make this a level playing field, encourage them to make sure that it truly is competitive and one side or one platform is not winning because they do not have to comply with the same rules.
Fantastic. Well, one last question on advocacy. I know AHOA Foundation, as well as American Hotel and Lodging Association, has done a lot of work on human trafficking. As terrible as that is, unfortunately, hotels become a bit of a focal point in that conversation. Please help us understand what progress has been made. What can the industry at large do to help clamp that down?
Yes, and thank you for raising this very important issue. Human trafficking is, as you said, just horrendous to think about that in today's world, in today's economy, right? That people are profiting off trafficking other human beings. It's just unspeakable. And in the hotel industry, one of our challenges is the fact that things happen in hotel rooms and the owners do not necessarily have control or even knowledge of what's going on behind those doors. And, like we just talked about, you cannot put cameras in the room to be recording what people are doing in private. So how do we address that? One key issue is education. We strongly encourage all of our members to be educated with their teams on human trafficking. What are the signals? What are the signs? And what can they do if they suspect something happening? And so that has actually, even in some states now, become the law that they are required to do it. We offer free human trafficking training through AHOA to make that available. The other thing that we try to do is offer attorneys that deal with these types of lawsuits to offer webinars to our members. And one thing that we have seen across the board is usually if a hotel owner has intentionally looked the other way or not paid attention, then that's where you see these very big, like court settle or these court judgments, right? The damages that they're awarding to the human trafficking victims for good reason. So our encouragement to the owners is make sure that you're on top of this so that if you get sued, you can show to the court, that number one, you were trained, you trained your team, you were talking to your team about potential, signs or other things that helped. And I'll say the third thing that we're doing as well, in addition to the education, is even talking to some of these human trafficking groups about how can we make hotels even more safe, right? Can we do anything with additional signs? Can we better market, kind of a hand signal for victims that they can share with staff at the hotel? Because you will see those human trafficking signs. There's usually an 800 number. But if you're a human trafficking victim, do you have access to a phone? Do you have privacy? So could there be a hand signal that you could show to members of the public, to hotel owners, to their staff, even on airplanes, right? That you could show to flight attendants so that they would understand it's a time and, a warning of distress to help these true victims.
Perfect. Perfect. Sam.
Yes, in educating elected officials, what do policymakers consistently get wrong about hotel ownership?
Yes. Well, that's again something that we have seen over the many years. And it's quite interesting because largely the hotel model is built on franchising. And what that means is that if you see the name Hilton or Marriott on a hotel, that does not mean that it's owned by Hilton or Marriott. And that's what most people get confused by or do not understand. These are actually small business owners, and they own the land, they own the building. And what they do is now they have a hotel and they look across the different brands and they say, what brand is going to work best for me in my community, in my neighborhood? And they might decide that it's a Motel 6, or that it should be a Days Inn, or that maybe it's a Hampton Inn, right? Or maybe it's a JW Marriott. They then work with these brands to enter into typically their 20-year franchise agreements so that they can then display their name to the public. They have access to the website, right? So that when guests click on, Hilton.com, they can then find Hilton hotels in that community. So that is the benefit for a small business owner, right? But contrary to what most believe, it's not the big brands that own these hotels. It is the AHOA members in large part that are small business owners, and they own and operate these hotels.
Okay, I have just another question. If you had a short, candid moment with a decision maker, what's the one thing you really want them to understand?
About the hotel ownership? Is that
Yes.
what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Yes, that these are small business owners. And let me just share the AHOA story, which is to me marvelous. And it is a story of Indian Americans that came to the United States 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and they bought a hotel. Oftentimes it was a roadside hotel. They often lived in that hotel with their families, their children. Instead of being able to play soccer, after school, they would come back to the hotel and make beds or run the front desk. But then over time, the community came together and started buying additional hotels. and now they've achieved this American dream. And I just love that story. There is nothing like it else. There's no other story like this in the industry.
Thank you. Abid?
So, Laura, obviously, in the past 40 years or so, the hotel ownership has evolved. The
Yes.
financial structures have evolved, and owners are far more knowledgeable about the industry. Tell us about your members that have owned from the very inception of AHOA, and they've been members and now might be second or third generation that is in this business. How has that transition been? What can the industry do? What are you doing as a HOA to educate the future leaders of the industry?
Yes, an excellent question. So, as mentioned, right, many times these first generation owners were just learning the business. And so we even offered through AHOA different training, different education on everything from operating the front desk to your laundry room, right? So they had to be educated on it, but then they learned it, and our members are very shrewd, very smart business people. And they then started passing that on to the next generation. Well, as mentioned, a lot of the second generation grew up in the hotels. So I love some of the stories I've heard that, especially of some of the women that at age 8, they were sitting behind the front desk doing homework, folding sheets, right? Registering guests. Their fathers were taking them on business trips so that they could see how to close a deal. And now they are strong owners and have taken over the family business. And we see this across the board. So as the second and third generation gets into the family business, they've grown up into it. Of course, they are expanding the family portfolio. They are looking at all the opportunities. And, going back to the opening of our discussion, they have now decided too that it's important to get more involved in advocacy. We talked about the efforts of AHOA at the federal level, but now many of our owners are getting involved in advocacy even at the state and local levels because they see that those decisions are impacting their businesses.
Staying on that vein, workforce transformation is an amazing challenge for the industry that we're all dealing with. There are shortages in workspace. It's hard to find people. The industry has been plagued with high turnover. Any thoughts on that? Any initiatives in educating, attracting the younger audience to come into this industry and then being able to retain them?
Yes, and that is, of course, an ongoing concern. And I'm sure we've all read the headlines about the labor shortage. This is true for the hotel industry, especially. The last report I saw was 65% of hotel owners are saying that they are understaffed and struggling to find workers. Many of the challenges are the housekeeping jobs, the front desk jobs. So they've gotten creative. I mean, I've heard everything from owners that have called their own parents out of retirement to help, man the front desk or help with some of these issues. We have seen trends in the technology side. I heard a story of an owner that he could not find anyone to man the front desk and, kind of the after hours. In other words, from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. And so he actually had a guest who came in late, could not check into the hotel, and slept in his car in the parking lot. And this owner was so upset that this happened that he said, "What is the technology out there?" So now there is technology that you can get. It almost looks like an ATM machine. And on the other side is a human being, right? So a guest can go in, click on it, talk to the person like we're talking, check in, get extra towels, get change made. I mean, so there's a live person that is helping them check in, but often this person is maybe in another country, right? So, this is what drives technology when these needs arise. Other things that I've heard owners are doing is they were seeing situations where maybe they had hired somebody, were paying a very good wage, but suddenly Target down the street was offering $1 more an hour, and this employee left. So there's been ongoing discussions about even an opportunity to create a real career path in the hotel industry. If you are working at the front desk and you start going through training, through, even being on site and learning from the other employees, the other team members, you could eventually become a general manager, right? And general manager jobs are necessary for hotels around the world, right? So you develop that training, you could really have a whole professional career in the industry. So amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
Our industry is phenomenal industry, and you rightfully said some of these jobs in our industry are possibly the hardest jobs to do. I tried to volunteer once for with a room attendant, and that room attendant fired me because I wasn't good enough. so it is a very, very amazing industry, and honestly the beauty of the industry is we don't need everybody to be a Nobel laureate to work in the industry. We work with people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, and the industry is welcoming in providing employment and a respectful job in all over the world. So that's the beauty of the industry.
Do you feel the industry is genuinely offering long-term careers, or are we still stuck in a short-term mindset?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? I'm hearing more and more, and I'll share one aspect that at our AHOA our annual convention, each year for the last several years, we've been offering a collegiate championship. And what it is, it's a competition between our top leading universities. They send teams of 2 people to do a distressed hotel kind of turnaround challenge where these college students have to make decisions with a limited budget on what do you do if you have a distressed hotel. And it's a whole technology simulation program. And then it's so fun because they have like a Shark Tank presentation at the end before a panel of judges as to why they made the decisions. And then there is, kind of a people's choice winner as well as a judge's winner. And what I really love about this program is not only seeing the enthusiasm and the brilliance of several of these, team members, who are still in college, but also the opportunity to talk to them one-on-one. And we had this just at our recent AHOA, right? We had several top leading hotel brand executives backstage. These collegiate champions, all of these college students were also backstage because we were going to recognize them in front of the AHOA membership. And then to see those kind of one-on-one conversations. So I think that there are many who are now seeing it as a career path. Of course, anytime there's minimum wage jobs, you're also going to have short term. That's just the nature of the industry. So it's up to the person. Do they want a career, which, as you said, hospitality is one of the best. If they want a career, there are doors of opportunity available.
I think such a wonderful initiative that you have, and that also where the old generation can learn something new from the ones with a fresh mindset, and they're looking at things a little bit different. That's really nice.
No conversation in this day and age will be complete without us discussing technology. And you brought up earlier, AI is the buzzword, and you constantly dealing with elected officials. AI is still not well understood. It's not regulated. It is incredible with all the work that is being done, but it's almost scary as to how do we best utilize AI in the business world, particularly in travel and tourism industry and hotels. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, and I love this topic, right? Because things are changing so much. And as much as we try to embrace it, I think it's hard to keep up. But in the hotel industry, we are seeing the tremendous benefits. I mean, AI technology, I'm going to kind of loop both of those together. As mentioned, the labor shortage, we're seeing what's happening with these real person kiosks to check people in. But we also see that even some of the great conveniences that we now as guests have access to, where it's keyless check-in, right? You just take your phone and your phone becomes your hotel key again, because there's a labor shortage. It's hard sometimes to get front desk clerks at all hours. So now they have this amazing technology. But on kind of the fun side, right, we're seeing the use of robotics increasing. Again, labor shortage, what's happening? We see these little robots that can bring you extra towels. They come down the hall, they can bring you extra towels, they can deliver room service. Now, the one thing, and I'll share this with your viewers, right, and your listeners, that I think the one area that AI technology has not yet perfected or come up with is a robot who can make beds, right? I think every other aspect of the hotel could probably be cleaned. I mean, we see these robotic vacuums, right? Even the restrooms, I can imagine that with the right chemicals or the right sanitation devices, you could close the door, push a button, get the entire restroom easily sanitized. But who is going to make the beds? So if anybody wants to develop a robot, right, to make beds, that might be, an amazing development in the industry. So, but to your point, of course, we continue to see AI being used for accounting purposes and for marketing purposes, as well as just connecting with guests and being able to show all of the amazing, sites and attractions that might be available to them, and to pull that all together and clearly communicate with guests and with potential travelers. That's the beauty of it. That's where we can pull it all into one place and really encourage travelers to go out and see this amazing country and see the world.
A couple of last things on the future of the industry. We'll talk a little bit about the industry outlook. 2026 Q1, by all accounts, have been pretty much flat year over year. On RevPAR basis, we haven't seen the growth. International demand into US is way down, so the yield is a bit of a challenge. So US hoteliers are scrambling to find other markets to fill those gaps. Can you share with us what your members are feeling, what they are doing? There are two major events in the US, as you know, FIFA World Cup and our 250th anniversary, that hopefully will bring an influx of travelers. But what are your members, what is AHOA doing to attract and help domestic travel, but also attract international visitors?
Right. And I think you hit that right on the point, right? And going again to our HOACon that we just had featured on April 8th through 10, we featured it this year in Philadelphia. And there was a reason for that, of course, the 250th anniversary of our country, right? And what a remarkable celebration we had, where it brought everything together, not only the 250th anniversary, but AHOA members achieving the American dream, right? What a perfect lineup, a perfect match. But I will share with you, just touching on the 250th anniversary, um, there has been a challenge. On the one hand, President Trump and the current administration have launched amazing initiatives to highlight the 250th anniversary of our country. They actually worked with the Department of Transportation to identify 250 sites across the United States that are landmarks that they encourage everyone at some point to see, right? Because we do have such amazing opportunities here to touch on that, to see the history of our country. Now, going to the international side, it's been interesting because of course, there has been a slowdown on international travel. And AHOA is part of several travel industry coalitions, initiatives, and we've even heard that in some parts of the world, there are rumors spreading that if you try to come to the United States, they're going to collect a DNA sample from you, or they're going to track all of your social media posts, right? So even though that's 100% not true, you can see where international travelers would be like, why would I go to the United States? Now, the other part that is a bit humorous is in so many parts of the world, right? They see 250 years and they say, that's nothing, right? Where we've been in existence for far longer. So I kind of chuckle at that. But you can see just the excitement that can be built around that. And so, to your point, what is AHOA doing? What are our members doing? I've encouraged our members, especially in those sites that, are near some of these 250 different tourist attractions, to work with the U.S. government on that, to even do specials for guests who want to come and see it, to highlight that tremendously. And then we are working very closely with other industry coalitions, with the White House, to strongly encourage international travelers to come back. And that is, a challenge that the U.S. faces. And they've really tried to do a lot with making visas more accessible, the wait times decreased. So we continue to promote that so that we can get, the international and the domestic tour travelers back. And then finally, World Cup, as you mentioned, huge events. And we are joining with other, industry partners to highlight, get your tickets. This is, a once in a lifetime opportunity to really see it at the ground level. And we are predicting that hotels in the local areas will sell out. So, take advantage of this. I mean, what an opportunity to really celebrate all that the U.S. has to offer.
Well, to your point, even domestic travelers, we haven't seen it because most of the time, if you're living at a place, you'll say, oh, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. But even the domestic traveler would enjoy, once these sites are highlighted, looking at it from a totally different lens. I think it'll be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
No, this is the first time I hear about these 250 places to visit. I think the news hasn't reached Finland yet, so I think it would be important to get the word out. I really don't have a question because I know the challenges and of course the global events actually move the needle for the hotel owners a little bit, but are they just more of a short-term boost, considering you have a whole year to manage the hotel? But what promotion can the hotel do more than they're doing now to boost the occupancy? Because you have to go out, use social media, all kinds of platforms just to tell their unique story to the world.
And that is absolutely the point, right? And that is also what we encourage our members to do, is to use those social media platforms to tell their unique story and to really highlight, I think maybe sometimes hotel owners, and it makes perfect sense, but they're maybe focused too much on the features and the amenities of the hotel itself, with all the photos of the beautiful lobby or the free breakfast or whatever it is. But I've read too, and we've encouraged our members to start highlighting some of the attractions around the hotel, because that often these traveling guests are coming, maybe they're coming for a business meeting and they're limited in what they can do. But most travelers nowadays do want to experience the ambiance of the local community. They want to know, they want a unique experience. So highlight that and celebrate that with them, and even give your guests an opportunity to then share that on your social media platform. So it's all about creating those memorable, unique, once in a lifetime experiences.
Right.
Amazing conversation, Laura. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation and sharing all the wonderful work that AHOA and AHOA's members are doing. This industry is an amazing industry, and there is always a bright future for people that join this industry, either as owners or employees, because it supports so many different segments globally. It's a fantastic industry. Thank you again for joining the conversation.
Well, thank you. It's been my great pleasure. So thank you again.